guys, it's Carrie Bandel, owner of Sacred Whispers Studio. Welcome to episode 2, Breaking Free from Limiting Beliefs and the Lies Your Mind Tells You. I'm really happy you joined me today. We're going to talk about something that affects every single one of us, whether we realize it or not, and that is limiting beliefs. These are the thoughts that run in the background of our minds, and they're shaping our actions and our confidence and even our potential. And the wildest part is most of them aren't even true. I want to start out by sharing a story about a limiting belief that I had. I grew up in Kentucky and I attended a really small town school. And this was, I want to say, at the end of ninth grade, I had moved. I had moved from a much larger school, but this was a small little building with basically kindergarten through 12th. So I believe the graduating class was about 10 people. The educational standards, unfortunately, weren't very high at that time, but the dropout rate was. And my future, college options, and career paths were never discussed with me. I never even had an option presented to me for higher education. So naturally, I assumed that higher education was for other people. And in 10th grade, I dropped out of school. I wasn't challenged or being taught anything that I hadn't already known from my previous education. And I was passing every test. I barely went to school. I went maybe twice a week and I was passing. So I dropped out. And besides that, I had a family business to run now due to my father passing away. So fast forward many years later to my first marriage, where I was called a dumb hillbilly all too often. And I knew somewhere inside this wasn't true, but um, well, there wasn't even a foundation for it. I learned how to speak in uh, the North and moved to Kentucky in third grade. So I didn't even have an accent. And at the time, we lived in the Midwest. So anyway, somehow it worked its way inside of me. And it's a story that actually belonged to the person delivering it to me because he was threatened by my knowledge and he didn't want me to be smarter than he was. So years later, I decided to challenge this belief. And I decided for no particular reason to go get my GED. I went in and I took the pretest to the woman said, let's just see where you're at. And I was given this very thick book to study. And she told me after the test that I needed to brush up on my geometry and my trigonometry because I got some answers wrong. And I giggled and she said, what's funny? And I said, I can't believe I got some wrong. I've never had more than basic math. Well, I never opened that book once. I worked full time and had 5 children. I was raising them alone and I had no time to study for it. I just basically jumped in and took the tests. And when the scores came back, I was told my scores were higher than anyone had ever seen, 98s and 99s and everything except math, of course. I squeaked by in math. Um, but that led me to my next step in my curiosity, and I took an IQ test. I scored at a genius level and thought, how could that be? That must be wrong. Of course, this reaction came because I still thought I was dumb and I just didn't believe it. So I took another one and I scored the same. And at this moment, it was the point where I realized I had been carrying around someone else's story about me, a story that was never mine to begin with. For years, that belief even came out in my dreams. I had just subconscious reminders of the lie I unknowingly accepted. I now have a new reality, though. I rewrote that old programming and I rewrote my reality. The truth is, I am smart, I am capable, and I can achieve anything. And that's what we're diving into today. How to identify these false beliefs and break free from them and replace them with thoughts that actually empower you, because your mind can be programmed. If it can be programmed with lies, it can also be reprogrammed with the truth. So, what exactly are limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are the false stories we tell ourselves. They're stories we've picked up from childhood or society, teachers, past experiences. They sound like, I'm not smart enough, or I'll never be successful. I'm just not the kind of person who can have it all. Money is hard to make. I will always have anxiety, depression, or pain. Or I'll always struggle with relationships, health, confidence, etc. The scary part is these beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe you'll never be successful, your brain will actually look for proof to confirm that belief. We touched on it last week. It's called the reticular activating system in your brain, or RAS. And your RAS filters information based on what you believe to be true. So if you believe you're not good enough, your brain will highlight every mistake and overlook your successes. And if you believe you're capable, your brain will start finding proof of that instead. So now you might be wondering, where do these beliefs come from? Well, most of them are planted in us early, before we even realize what's happening. Parents and teachers, maybe you were told you weren't good at something as a kid and it stuck, or through society and culture, we absorb messages about who we should be, and even past experiences. One failure can turn into, I'm just not good at this. And this also includes having the victim mindset. Have you ever met one of those people? But this, but just because you believed something for years doesn't mean it's true. So, how do you break free? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's a 3-step process. First, you have to identify the limiting belief. Think about an area of your life where you feel stuck, and what's the thought that comes up? What things trigger you? And ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it actually true? Would I say this to a friend? If you wouldn't say it to someone you love, it's probably not the truth. Second, challenge and reframe it. Once you identify the belief, it's time to reframe it. For example, instead of, I'm not smart enough, try, I'm capable of learning anything I set my mind to. Instead of, I'll never be successful, try, success is a skill I can develop. Words matter, and what you tell yourself shapes your reality. And third, install a new belief. Your mind is reprogrammable, but it takes repetition. Start affirming what you want to believe. Write it down, say it out loud, find proof. Remember my IQ test story? The moment I saw the truth, I couldn't unsee it. And once you recognize your own power, you won't be able to either. And by the way, those dreams, they went away also. So here's my challenge for you this week. Pick one limiting belief you've been holding on to and rewrite it. Because the truth is, you are not stuck, you are not limited, and the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the story you're telling yourself. You get to write a new one. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And don't forget, subscribe, like, comment, anything you do will help me out. I'll see you next time when we talk about how visualization can rewire your brain for success. And following that, our final week, on the power of your mind, integrating your mental mastery that sums it all up. Thanks for listening.